Larry Bird, I think Larry is the epitome of what I saw myself walking away from the game and getting out of the spotlight. You don't see much of Larry now. I think that's something that he chose.
Back in Indiana and cool with it.
Which isn't bad. I like that. I really admire him for doing that.
Michael Jordan once said something about Larry Bird and LeBron James that instantly caught the internet's attention. It was just one sentence, but it was enough to reignite one of basketball's biggest debates. Jordan didn't mention any names directly, yet everyone listening understood exactly who he was talking about. For decades, legends like Magic Johnson, Gary Payton, and Kobe Bryant have all shared their thoughts about Larry Bird's greatness. But when Jordan's words entered the conversation, the discussion exploded again. So the question remains, after hearing what these legends have said about Larry Bird, do you still believe LeBron James belongs in the same conversation? Be honest, what do you think?
Enjoy yourself, dog. Y'all gave us the run for our money. Yeah. I'll see you. All right, take care. Now you can work on that golf game of yours.
Let's start with the quote.
Let's start with the quote, because everything else in this conversation flows from it. Michael Jordan once said that one player was feared by the legends of the game, and another player he didn't have much to say about. That was the entire statement. Just one sentence. But if you know anything about Michael Jordan, you know he doesn't speak casually. Every word he says is deliberate. Every opinion he shares in public comes from one of the most competitive minds the sport has ever seen. So when Jordan says he doesn't have much to say about someone, it's not neutral, it's dismissive. According to those who interpreted the comment, the player he respected and feared was Larry Bird, while the one he claimed not to have much to say about was LeBron James. And with that single remark, Jordan sparked a debate that has been running across sports television and social media for nearly 2 decades.
I like people to talk shit to me, cause it is what it is. I don't hold no grudges. I ain't got no feelings about it. It makes me even better. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Cause if you was working with my mama last night and my wife, I was with yours too. You forgot she didn't call you for a long time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, she got in at 10:30. You mad at me now cause I know what time she got in. You feel what I'm saying?
To understand why Jordan's words carried so much weight, you have to understand the era Larry Bird actually played in. Because the NBA of the 1980s and the NBA of today are almost 2 different games. They share the same name, the same ball, and the same basket, but nearly everything else has changed.
X-Man told a story on Tim Thomas' Scoop Beats podcast about Larry Bird talking to you, saying, I'm the best man down, put a 3 into my ball. That's true?
It is very true, bro.
Basketball in the 1980s was incredibly physical, far more than what most modern fans are used to seeing today. Back then, hand-checking was legal, meaning defenders could place their hands directly on offensive players, pushing and steering them all the way up the court. Hard fouls weren't considered controversial, they were part of the strategy. Driving to the rim meant accepting that you might hit the floor hard. Players like Bill Laimbeer became famous for their physical style. The Detroit Pistons bad boys didn't invent that toughness, they simply perfected a style that already existed across the league.
Would you consider yourself a trash talker?
Not really. I mean,
Come on, coach.
A lot of people do it to demean people. I did it for fun most of the time.
Right.
2 of my favorite people. I got in the NBA. I got to stand next to Elvin Hayes at the center court. Loved him. And Creed. I was standing there talking to Elvin. I said, Elvin, see Kevin there? He's talking bad about you. What? I said, Kevin, tell him what you told me. He goes, what's that? I said, you're going to kick his butt tonight. He goes, hey, Alvin, I'm going to kick your butt tonight. Kevin's a rookie. Stuff like that, but it really wasn't vicious. Me and Chuck used to get into a little bit.
I was going to go
I
right
really
there.
liked Chuck. He knew I liked him.
Oh, yeah.
And but we
you guys had
after
battles in terms of talking.
Yeah.
The one I remember was when you told Chuck, I'm going to go right here in front of our bench.
Yeah.
I'm going to shoot on this spot.
Yes.
And I'm going to drain it. And he said, Merry Christmas, Mike.
Yeah.
Another big difference was the mentality toward playing time. In the 1980s, there was no such thing as load management. If you could walk into the arena, you played. If you could barely move, you still showed up and competed. Sitting out a regular season game to protect your body for the playoffs would have been viewed very differently in that era. Many players would have seen it as a sign of weakness. The culture of the league demanded toughness, endurance, and the willingness to compete every single night.
Who's still got to drop one here quickly. 14. This is a tie for the money. Yo!
Win, Larry Bird at the buzzer with the 2-point ball. 17-15 defends the long-distance shootout crowd at Chicago Stadium.
You showed up. You competed. That was the expectation in that era, and nobody questioned it. That was the world Larry Bird played in. And he played in it with a body that probably should have forced him to retire years earlier. Bird dealt with bone spurs in both heels that eventually required surgery. He battled constant back problems that slowly wore down his body and ultimately ended his career. These were the kinds of injuries that today would come with long medical reports and weeks of rest. But Bird rarely talked about the pain. He just showed up and played. Night after night, he stepped onto the court and dropped 30 points while managing a body that was breaking down underneath him. That's part of why Michael Jordan respected him so much. It wasn't just the statistics. It wasn't only the championships. It was the willingness to compete at the highest level while enduring that kind of physical punishment without asking for sympathy. Jordan respected sacrifice because his own career was built on it. And when he looked at Bird, he saw someone who lived by the same standard. But before comparing Bird to LeBron James, it's important to understand what Bird actually accomplished. Because his story didn't begin with hype or national attention. Bird came from French Lick, Indiana, a town so small it barely felt like a town at all. He wasn't a media-made superstar. There were no national TV crews following his high school games. No documentaries calling him the chosen one. Just a kid who worked construction jobs and played basketball with relentless determination. That determination eventually carried Indiana State Sycamores to the 1979 NCAA championship game, where Bird faced Magic Johnson and the Michigan State Spartans. That game became one of the most watched college basketball games in history. And that rivalry between Bird and Magic would eventually help transform the entire NBA. By the late 1970s, the league was struggling. TV ratings were dropping, and public interest was fading. But when Bird and Magic entered the league together, everything changed. Within just a couple of years, professional basketball had a new energy, a new rivalry, and a new audience. Their competition became the driving force that rebuilt the NBA into a global sport. Bird joined the Boston Celtics, and the impact was immediate. In his rookie season, the Celtics improved by 32 wins. 32. That's not simply a good player joining a team. That's a player transforming an entire franchise overnight. Over the next 13 seasons, Bird built one of the greatest resumes in basketball history. 3 league MVP awards. 3 NBA championships. 12 All-Star selections. 2 Finals MVPs. And Rookie of the Year. All of it accomplished in just 13 seasons. And during those years, players across the league learned something very specific about facing Larry Bird. It was never going to be comfortable. It was never going to be quiet. Because Bird didn't just beat opponents, he talked to them while doing it. Even legendary trash talkers admitted Bird was on another level. Gary Payton, one of the greatest trash talkers in NBA history, once said Bird was the coldest competitor he ever faced. Not because Bird talked more than everyone else, but because he told you exactly what he was about to do and then did it. He would tell defenders where he was going to shoot from, how he was going to create space, and when the shot was coming. And then he would do it right in front of them. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. Stories like that followed Bird everywhere. One game, a young Shawn Kemp was guarding him during his rookie season. Early in the game, Bird told him it was going to be a long night. By the end of the game, Bird had scored 40 points. Kemp later said that experience changed how he looked at basketball for the rest of his career. Even elite defenders had trouble with Bird. When Dennis Rodman tried guarding him closely in one game, Bird reportedly shouted toward the bench, complaining that nobody on the court could actually guard him. The closer Rodman defended him, the more Bird scored. That wasn't just confidence. It was psychological warfare. Players weren't just trying to stop Bird physically, they were trying to survive the mental battle too. Even Kobe Bryant, one of the most obsessive students of basketball the game has ever seen, studied Bird's footwork, angles, and timing. Bryant once said Bird was always a step ahead mentally. For someone with Kobe's basketball intelligence to say that speaks volumes. Meanwhile, Magic Johnson always called Bird his greatest rival. The one player who could outthink and outplay him on any given night. Their rivalry defined an entire decade of basketball. Now, when people debate Bird and LeBron, the conversation often turns to statistics. And it's worth looking at them honestly. Bird averaged about 10 rebounds per game in his career. LeBron averages just over 7. But Bird grabbed those rebounds in an era filled with dominant big men like Moses Malone, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Charles Barkley, and Robert Parrish battling for every possession. Bird also shot 88.6% from the free throw line for his career. LeBron sits closer to 73%. In basketball, free throws are the most controlled and repeatable scoring opportunity, and that gap matters. Bird's overall shooting efficiency was remarkable for his era, nearly 50% from the field, 37% from three, and almost 90% from the line. He even won the NBA three-point contest 3 years in a row in 1986, 1987, and 1988. Before his first contest, Bird famously walked into the locker room and asked the other competitors who was finishing second. Then he went out and won.